listening to the Deep Purple Podcast, a fan podcast about one of the most legendary bands of all time, Deep Purple. We take a look at the music, history, and people behind the band Deep Purple and beyond. Welcome to the Deep Purple Podcast, the first and only podcast devoted to one of the greatest bands in rock history, Deep Purple. Today's episode is episode number 259, Machine Head Super Deluxe. And coming to you from the suburbs of Chicago, we're knee-deep in Easter candy. I'm your host, Nathan Beaudry.
And coming to you from the suburbs of Providence, I'm your co-host, John, Shalerville Cemetery, Matola.
And coming to you from north of Shalerville Cemetery, I'm Rich, but then the feeling comes again of an April without end, and fools die laughing still, Shaler.
Oh, I like that.
Very good. Yeah. I see why you had to consult your
Yeah, that was good. You know.
That would be an easy one to biff. Wow. All right. So where's Shalerville Cemetery?
So it's actually Tylerville Cemetery in Haddam, Connecticut. So we're doing
Adam. We didn't have any Arabs in our
Adam, Haddam. I don't know. I guessed. I took a quick guess. Yes, so we're doing
Haddam is something you get on a falafel.
Sounds good.
So Haddam, Connecticut sounds delicious. It sounds spicy.
I'll have the Haddam, Connecticut.
Yes, we're
sounds
doing
like it's like getting falafel for white people or something. I'll have the Haddam, Connecticut.
Yeah, we're doing Connecticut a second round because after Nate and I recorded our first episode, Rich had texted me a couple of reminders of Shalerville, and I was like, "Damn it, I already did." And he's like, "Why can't you do it again?"
That's right.
Why can't I do it again?
That's right.
And
it's
Connecticut
you can do whatever the hell you want.
It gets 2 rounds because it's also it's not only the home of Shalerville, it's the home of the Roback and the Gardeau, and
that's right. And
that
is
first color TV, and
that is named after your ancestors, right?
It is actually, yeah. So it's spelled differently, but that is my direct ancestors. So we go back all the way to 1672, I think.
Before they got some sense and moved to Massachusetts, right?
No, we're the only ones that did that.
Oh.
They got dumber and moved to New York and New Jersey.
Oh, man.
But no, they settled that whole area, Haddam and Higginham, Connecticut, and yeah, so it's kind of cool. I've been down there to see the old grave sites, and found the very first one here, and done a bunch of the genealogy. We invented the electric toaster. I have none of that money.
Really?
Yeah, I have none of that money.
That Shaler toaster money?
There was like a vulcanization thing that we invented. Don't have any of that money. Apparently that was a different line as well. And we also helped found the NRA. Also not any money in my pocket. So,
Right.
I guess we picked the wrong line.
oh well.
My goodness. My computer just completely died on me, so I might have to open this up on one of my other computers. Yeah, so hey folks. Oh wait, I think it just came back to life.
A statement that you'll only hear regularly from Nate. It's like, "Oh, my computer died. Let me just consult one of my other computers, my many other just laying around here."
This seems to be I don't know what's going on with it. It's frozen up. All right, we'll just open up this one. But hey folks, I'm gonna go off memory. Hopefully I got it by now, but we are 100% listener supported and ad free. So if you get some value from the show, please consider giving us some value back so we can continue to keep the show in good things, including this newly remastered release.
Ooh.
I'm trying to there's nowhere I can put it. I can put it in front of my face here.
There we go.
As if you guys don't know, as if you're watching this and you don't know this album cover for some reason. But you can support us a number of ways. One is by leaving us a 5-star review on Apple Podcasts. Another way you can support the show is by buying some merch from our Etsy page. You can also become a patron on Patreon or on PayPal for as little as $1 a month. Help support the show. Help us buy albums to review. Sometimes help us buy albums to review twice. I'll get into later. And yeah, we can also, I'm also using our brand new computer supported by patrons. So thank you very, very much. And speaking of patrons, we do have a couple of things to announce. Late breaking news here. And one of them is an upgrade for John Maselli, upgrading to the $5 tier. So we keep getting, now we're going to
Ooh.
officially have the Maselli thing earlier in the show. So that's
That's
still,
something to look forward to.
I know. Yeah, you won't have to wait till the end of the show now to get the Maselli to be serenaded by the
Fix.
sweet the sweet song of Tony Danza. And then we have another one. Yes, we have another patron upgrade. Unbelievable. So it's been a very busy Easter weekend for everybody. This is a rare episode that we're actually recording as it comes out. So we're recording this now and it's going to be out in just a few hours. So we're
Hey-o.
releasing on the same day, which have we ever done that?
I don't think so.
And of course it's like my daughter's sick and I'm like, do we have to take her to the ER? I'm like, if I cancel, we're gonna
Oh, well.
miss our first show ever. But no, she's not. She's doing okay. But yeah, our other patron upgrade, which I'm desperately trying to find. Where is it? All right, ICDC. Yes, thank you. Upgrading to the, what did he say, $1.50 tier to just push a little ahead of the made up name tier. So big thanks to ICDC for that. We really appreciate it. All right. So that gets our stuff out of the way. We have the Deep Dive Podcast Network. Check it out for other great podcasts on music and bands. And before we get into it, we have, of course, I have to thank our first level of patrons, the executive level at the in memoriam tier, the wonderful late Gerald, Jerry Kelly, and family. At the $25 Uncommon Man tier, we have Ovis Knockvi and Purple Maniac. At the 15 Squid tier, we have Alan. At the 10-pound Good Doctor tier, Dr. Mike Catan. At the turn it up to $11 tier, Clay Wambacher, Frank Thielgard Mortensen, Mickelstein, Will Porter, PHDPP, Michael Bagford. And at the $10 Someone Came tier, Ryan M., Jeff Bryce, Victor Campos, Better Call Saul Evans, and Peter from Illinois. And at the Hughesoween by 2033 tier, we have Fielding Fowler. That last ooh gets me every time. It used to be
Yeah,
for
it would have gotten me too,
bleh.
but I can't hear it.
You can't hear it?
Nope.
Yeah, we're not getting any sound over here.
What?
Well, at first I was getting some muffled sound, and
Oh, I see what it is. Okay, it's fixed.
I
now.
mean, I know what it sounds like.
Yeah, you guys have heard it enough.
Gonna need your dog, Nate.
My dog. There. Okay, you should have heard that.
Oh,
Fine.
look, well, we have a feline special guest.
A feline special guest. Well, see, so the odd thing is there's like one thing I have to click to the cat's taking over.
Rich's cat is taking over his spot.
As Rich has said, the cat has no interest in him until he's recording.
That's right.
There's one button I have to click in Zoom every time to get the sound to work. And there's no way to just say, hey, by default, could you just make it this way every time? You just have to click it. So we should be good now.
All right.
All right. So here we are, folks. Deep Purple Machine Head. Super Deluxe, released March 29th, just a few days ago. I ordered mine directly from Rhino, thinking this is going to be great. They're going to deliver it on the delivery date. And then I looked and they were like, just kidding. Well, they shipped it nice and early. So I said, great. And then they said, oh, it's going to be delivered April 1st. I said, no, that's not going to work because I'm not going to be able to listen to it before the show. So I ordered an emergency copy on Amazon, which I'm holding right now. And then at some point during the show, maybe my other copy will arrive. So it's pretty nice. We got this, very similar to the original gatefold here.
Beautiful.
Yeah, I have nowhere to put this. And then they've got these, maybe I should just move my camera. That'd make them make most sense. There we go. And then on the inside, they've got the why can I not do this? It's in reverse. Oh, that's why, because I'm looking
No,
at the
we
wrong
see it.
section.
We see it fine.
There we
He's,
go.
he's never going to do the weather on the news.
Yeah, I know. I'm not. Yeah, that's why this is that's why if you're watching this on YouTube, it's just an afterthought. I don't do video, but it's got the well, it had four. I don't know where the other one is now. The Blu-ray is supposed to be right here. It's probably over by my kid's PlayStation. Then it's got the remastered Machine Head, the In Concert 72, and then the
Nice.
Mantra 71. Um, and then a very nice. Well, it's got a poster of the lyrics.
Oh, that's cool.
Kind of like a. So it's a weird shape, though. I don't know how I would frame that. And this booklet with all these different interviews, pictures, all sorts of stuff here, which is pretty cool. Some really nice, some of the more rare pictures, some of the ones you've probably seen before. The original like little lyric sheet to Smoke on the Water, where he's like, we came out to Mantra, and then he like wrote all in. He kind of like penciled it in. No, we all came out to Mantra. And it's got some of the some of the early lyrics that didn't actually make the final song. So pretty cool book, something
Nice.
nice to read. A very I love this picture of Ritchie with the candles.
I thought it was
Okay.
they all went down to Montreux.
Yeah, it wasn't just kind of cleared it up who went and who didn't. There's even a whole thing here from Tim Rice about the band and Ian Gillan, which is cool. But yeah, so a pretty nice package. A vinyl, 3 CDs, and a Blu-ray. Pretty nice package. But
Yeah, it looks like it was put together pretty well.
yeah, all these things, these collectors item things are always really well done these days, and it gives you in this day when you can just stream or steal anything you want. It's cool to have something like this because, well, for one thing, there's the Blu-ray part of it, which you just can't really duplicate that experience quite the same without a absolutely massive download for somebody who was trying to steal it. And then you've got all this other great stuff too. So nice to have something tactile to look at and listen to, or look at and read while you're listening to the album. But anyway,
I do miss those days.
yeah, it's nice. It's nice to just kind of chill out. And yesterday after Easter brunch, I came down to I said, okay, family's gone. I'm going to the basement to listen to Deep Purple. So you can either leave me alone or you can come to the basement and listen and be quiet. And 2 of my kids took me up on that.
Really?
Came down and they listened to the whole thing. They didn't say,
Wow.
well, they said like a couple things, but they were actually like fully engaged and listening to the music, which I was really not expecting. I expected to
Wow.
just come down there, start talking about Roblox and fighting with each other, but they just they just sat and listened and had some commentary on the music, so it was a lot of fun.
No, that's parenting.
Yeah, making memories.
Yeah. My daughter, mostly because my daughter was sick, so she just kind of lied down on my lap and was kind of sick, but my son was really into it. Even this morning, he was like, "Oh, thanks for listening to that. That was really cool."
Oh,
Nice.
yeah, get them on board early.
Yeah.
I gotta say that was we were texting yesterday, and that was the funniest thing that I had heard was when you were talking about the album covers, and your wife was like, "Is that the one with their faces on that silly goblet?" I'm like, which album cover is that? I'm like, that's the best description of "Come Taste the Band" I've ever
Yeah, I
heard.
was like, how dare you? I was like legitimately like fighting with her. Like what's so silly about the goblet? It's just a normal goblet.
You should definitely keep notes on that for the future proceedings on the divorce.
Yeah, I think.
And she called
your
wine glass.
Your Honor, I would like to present you with the album cover for Come Taste the Band. I mean, Your Honor, is there anything silly about this? Come on.
So
probably be like, yeah, it's a little silly.
so I don't know if this is like how this happened. I feel like it was fate or something, right? So you said that, I'm laughing about it for a while. Later on that day, somebody brings a dessert, like one of those the layered desserts,
Yep.
what do they call it? Trifle?
Trifle,
Yep,
yeah.
yep.
Right? And it's in this big goblet looking thing. And I'm looking at it and I'm just like, come taste the flan.
Did you
And
see
I'm
your face reflecting in the truffle and all your family members' faces like reflecting in it?
like, that's how you know you're into Deep Purple, is you see a goblet of dessert and you picture like the 5 faces on it from Come Taste the Band, and you're like, all right, I got to think about something else.
Well,
But,
knowing John and desserts, I'm pretty sure you saw his face in the goblet.
hmm.
Yeah, and it wasn't a reflection.
Yeah, buried in it.
But my it's funny how things work out like that. Like yesterday I went into here to get a cable and I accidentally pressed the yodeling pickle. I didn't even see it and it started yodeling. And then like an hour later, Gardo sends us a text of him playing of them playing the yodeling pickle for his family at Easter. It's just things line up. Synchronicity. Okay, but we're here to talk about the album. Obviously, there's many parts to the album, but I think obviously the most talked about thing is the remix. So, do we want to start with that and talking about the remix of the album?
Sure, you're the
Yes,
boss.
we shall.
All right. So, what is this? My computer's acting really weird. Yeah, so the remix. Where do we want to start? Do we want to go song by song? Do you want to just say what you're?
Yeah, I think maybe song by song would be a good way to go.
All right, cool. I got a few notes on every song, but and I do have also my notes on the Atmos surround sound mix too, so I
Okay.
can bring that up. So
Yeah, I don't think
What
that
was that? Is that the one that's on the DVD or?
yeah, it's the Blu-ray, and it's pretty cool. It's only the second album that I've listened to like that, and yeah, I think I want to get some more. But yeah, what do you guys think? Highway Star. Who wants to kick it off?
Rich?
Highway Star is probably one of my favorite Deep Purple songs. Even though I like you guys always talk about the ear fatigue. I mean, you just heard it so many times, but that's one, even as many times as I've heard it, never get tired of it. Always listen to it.
Mhm.
And I actually thought this mix was pretty good. I mean, I saw you had sent the audio file comparison yesterday, and it did not surprise me that it was almost all black going
Yeah.
across.
Yeah.
Because that was the first thing I noticed. It was friggin' loud.
Yeah.
Like it was like everything was louder than everything else.
Yeah, exactly. They finally achieved it.
They finally got everything louder than everything else, and kind of that wall of sound a little bit. But I actually kind of like the mix. I like that he added the screams from the beginning back in at the end. I like a little bit of the effects he put on things, but most of all, just that it had that power that song really needs to have. And I still think Roger Glover's mix is probably the best.
Mhm.
But the thing that lacks a little bit in Roger, which I liked in the beginning, but now I see that it kind of takes away from it, is the way he starts it is just as they're kind of tuning up and getting ready, and then they get into the song. I think it has more power when it just comes right in on the way we all know the song.
There was something about the way it started that almost made me feel like I had started it like a second in. It started so abruptly, and
Right.
so I was wait, did I start it right at the beginning? So I immediately like rewound it and rewind. I would press so whatever you call it now. But I immediately went back to the beginning of the track. I was like, no, it just starts that abruptly. It almost sounds like you're missing a beat. But yeah, I also really liked the mix. I thought it was. I guess we can get into that later or whenever, but like putting the scream in back in at the end. I know some, diehards were really upset by that, but I don't know. To me, it was a cool effect.
Well, if you're gonna remix it, you're gonna remix it. I mean, it's
Mm.
sort of like Giles Martin with the Beatles stuff. Like, when they did the love thing, like I like that he reimagined stuff and that he put different parts
Yeah.
of songs together and makes it more interesting to me. I mean, I don't really have a problem with him doing that because you're getting the regular mix of the album as well. It's not like this is going to replace the original mix of the
Right.
album. It's just a
Mhm.
different a different take on it, but I did not love the car sounds behind the guitar solo. I felt that was a little unnecessarily distracting from one of Richie's best solos.
I don't know if I picked up on that.
It was just like the like the car revving sounds, on a
Oh,
guitar.
really?
Yeah, pretty
Huh.
sure. Pretty sure I heard it.
Yeah, I can't remember that. But
I
Uh
don't,
oh.
maybe,
Uh
yeah,
oh.
maybe.
well, I mean,
Uh oh.
I've
Well,
Go to the tape. Go to the
maybe
tape.
maybe that was just your neighbor.
I mean, I only listened, I was able to listen through it once because I had to, from when was it, Friday until today, I had to get through like 4, discs worth of stuff. So,
Yep.
but I, I think my impression was the same as yours at first. Like, I mean, like what we were just saying, I think we said before is like, as long as you have an option, um, and it's not replacing anything, because that's what we had talked about before with the re-release of the Ozzy albums. It's
Mm,
just like, okay, like these are here, and unless you have like the originals, like screw you, you're not going to be able to listen to anything else.
yeah.
So I mean, and you made a good point too. Is like this is a reimagining or a remix or something. So you want it to be a little different. So it's like of course I went into it and was a little jarred at first because you hear it the same way for years and years, and then it's a little bit different. I'm just kind of like, hey, that's not how it's supposed to go. But tried to keep an open mind. But I like how like the Gillan's vocals were very like heavily affected. Like I feel like I heard the most kind of like remixing on that. Like it gave it kind of like more grit or more power. Um, and that's the thing that stuck out to me the most, as well as like the clarity of some things. Like you were talking about the mastering, it was much louder. And putting it the scream at the end, I thought that was I think a good if we're going to use the word reimagining of that song to kind of give it the original that kind of like grandiose quality that it kind of gained over time for that song to have just kind of ends it on this really kind of like grand high note. And yeah, I thought it was cool that he dropped that in there.
Yeah, I think the one thing I noticed during this and then just during the whole thing was how much more emphasis there really seemed to be on the Hammond. Like it was very present. Not that it's not on a normal Deep Purple, but it really seemed like it took center stage on a lot of the mixes. Um
Hmm.
and I think for everything I heard in a good way, it was I heard things, and I think much like when we like listened to the isolated tracks, I feel like listening to this, a lot of things popped out that I might not have noticed before on other songs because they were just that much more present in the mix. And I did feel like from the stereo mix of the remix, felt like you were sitting inside of the with the group, and then obviously doing the surround sound mix was incredible, and I'm really, really loving that experience. The only other album I've done this with is we joke about what it's the 50th anniversary of Machine Head, and it's 52 years later. Well, Deep Purple last year released the 2018 mix of Animals. It was, what, 5 years delayed. Um, so I listened to that album in that surround sound, and that's an album I've listened to a million times, and just hearing things that I had never heard before in that album was an incredible experience. And I think this one was the same, although Deep Purple I wouldn't consider the same as Pink Floyd as far as like the Air Candy and all that sort of stuff. It's more of a straight ahead rock band, but there was still a lot of really cool things that I could pick up on that I had never really noticed before. Little things that John Lord was doing, even some of the guitar work that Ritchie was doing that might have taken a backseat in the mix was really, really
Mm.
noticeable in that surround sound mix. And I'm enjoying that as an experience. And I got into a talk with a guy that I work with about the Animals album, and he's a big fan of that album too, and really hated the mix. And so I did my normal thing, and I accidentally ordered 2 copies of the Blu-ray. So I gave him the other one. I was like, listen to this on surround sound when you get a chance, and don't think of it so much as the new mix not being what you used to. Think of it as a separate new experience of listening to this music. And that's kind of what listening to it in surround sound was like to me. If I was going to listen to this on Spotify, I don't know that I'd listen to the 2024 mix, but sitting down in a dark room with surround sound speakers, it was really cool.
Abbey Road's next for you.
Yes, and I was talking, I almost convinced Jen to listen to Machine Head with me Saturday night, but we were too busy getting ready for Easter. And then she totally was like, "No, I'm gonna go take a nap" yesterday. But for Abbey Road, she'd be there 100%. So yeah, I'm gonna order that today, I think. Maybe sometime in the next 3 months we can listen to it.
The other thing with, well, two things. One is Highway Star, well, the whole album, but Highway Star's song I know so well, but I don't generally just sit down and go, I'm listening to Highway Star. It's just,
Right.
it's on and you're listening, you're singing along, you're half paying attention because you know it so well. It's kind of in your DNA a little bit. So when you do sit and go, all right, I'm listening to this, and you might be picking up something new, or you might just be noticing something that was there all along
Yep.
and you just didn't pay that much attention to it. The other downside for me is I wanted to listen to it on headphones or at a minimum earbuds so I could like really lock into it, and I couldn't. So I just
Yeah.
had it like on a on a speaker, not even a good system. So to be fair, but that's how I listen to a lot of music now. So it's a fair comparison for what I usually listen to, but not maybe a fair comparison, like you said. If I was sitting in a surround sound with my best speakers and everything going, maybe I'd have a different feeling on it.
Yeah, I think I agree. Like, there's something to be said about listening to it on a great system, but anything kind of sounds really good on a great system. So, like, if you listen it on the system that you're used to, like I listen to it in my car, which is where I listen to 90% of my stuff, I'm hearing it in the same format, so I
Right.
can tell if it's different or not. Not the greatest speakers in the world, but my surround sound system down here is pretty nice. I'm not like an audiophile, but they're pretty nice speakers, and it really really came alive, I thought, and
That's why John Lennon mixed all his singles. He had a small car speaker in a cigar box
yep.
that he would use to mix his singles, because he knew that's how most people were going to hear the songs, were in a car on a crappy little speaker in the back of their VW or whatever, and so that's how he mixed them. So when they remix those now, I really hear the difference. I mean, you
Oh yeah.
really hear the difference. It's night and day.
Yeah, I think it's a good thing to do an A B, but no, he was just doing B.
Right. And I mean, but he was right. That was,
Oh,
that's how
absolutely.
most people were experiencing it. And even people with good stereos didn't have, anything that was going to make that needle jump off the record.
Yeah. It's um yeah, I think there's a story. I think, isn't it Tom Petty? I think it's Tom Petty, where they were one of his big albums. Um I can't remember which one it was, but yeah, they were mixing it and like listening to the cassette in their car. And for some reason they lost the car and they had to like go find the car or buy it back from somebody or something because they were so used to that. I forgot what the exact story is, but it is true. It's, you
Wow.
got to listen to it how people are going to listen to it. And most people are not listening to it on a $25,000 mastering setup. But yeah, as far as Machine Head, yeah, my son, after Machine Head ended on the surround sound, he looked at me and goes, "Okay, starting off strong."
I like that.
Hey, should add him on the panel. Take him out of school for the day.
Yeah, well, he was lobbying for me to take him out of school last night, so I was like, "No, I can't take you out of school when you've been gone for 10 days."
Of course.
But yeah, so yeah, he was into it. I thought I mean, obviously you're listening onto this and sometimes there's going to be a lot of panning, right? Because why the hell do it in 5.1 if there's not? But there was it wasn't just like the same setup for every song. There was a lot of really cool back and forth, and sometimes stuff was diagonally in front of you. Sometimes stuff was diagonally behind you. Sometimes it panned between those two while the other instruments are panning in the other two diagonally. So it's almost too much to really recount, but it's really, it forces you to pay attention and forces you to like have this specific sonic experience versus just having it on in the background. And I was looking at it just has the screen and it just says the list of the songs. And when it goes to the next song, that one highlights. So it's nothing visually you're really looking at other than there's a little slight sway in that aluminum reflection that they kind of duplicate from the album.
Does it
But
come with a
you're
joint?
what's that?
Does it come with a joint?
It does not come with
Oh,
let me
all
see.
right.
I haven't gone totally through here. Oh, it's some rolling papers. But it now you threw me off.
You're talking about the
Um,
panning, and then you're talking about the visuals, the slate sway and the tinfoil.
there's no visual. Yeah, thank you. So there's no visual. So I'm looking at the track list and I'm like, 3 of the 7 songs on this album I hear regularly in the background at work, like almost every day. So, like to your point, is the fatigue of some of those songs, and obviously Highway Star, Smoke on the Water, Space Truckin' are the ones that you hear, going to the bank, going to the grocery store, in an elevator probably. Although, do they really play music in elevators anymore? Everyone says elevator music, but
No, I don't
I
think
don't
so.
I
think
noticed
so.
it. But yeah, you're so familiar with these songs, and it is cool to just challenge yourself to actually sit there and listen. And other than just taking a few brief notes, that's what I did. So yeah, really good. It's hearing the drum fills too go like you're hearing maybe the snare on your left and the toms go from front left to front right and just kind of all around you. It makes you feel like you're almost on stage with the band or in their rehearsal
Hmm.
space or something. It's pretty cool. So yeah, anything else about Highway Star?
No, only that I'm jonesing now to see if those stupid car sounds are in the guitar solo or not.
Yeah, we gotta listen to it.
Yeah.
Well, I could have fallen for that too because my neighbor, one of his favorite things to do, and he did it last night on Easter in the freaking rain, is he just goes out there and he revs his motorcycle for a while and then he puts it away. So
Okay.
he's got a lot of fans in the cul-de-sac.
Yeah,
Thanks,
I'm
you
buddy.
sure.
gotta make sure things ready to go. It's like
He never seems
testing
to.
your generator. You got every once in a while to make sure it's working.
Every once in a while, every day. I'm pretty sure it's running. I'm pretty sure it's going to be okay. But yeah, maybe that's what you were hearing. But now I'm interested to listen to see if I can hear that. But yeah, I maybe I'm a Leo. Next track. What do we think of that one?
I didn't really notice that much on this one,
Yeah.
other than maybe some effects on the vocals, which I mean, it didn't really take away or add anything in my opinion. But probably one I don't listen to as much as the other songs, and if I do, I tend to go for a live version, or so I don't really have too much to say on that one.
John?
Yeah. I think this was one of the songs where we were talking about hearing other like things in the song that we hadn't noticed. And one of the I can't remember what line it was, but there was one line that Gillan had where for a minute I questioned myself, and I'm like I almost felt like he redid the vocals or something like that. Like there were just a couple of lines that jumped out at me so much. I'm like, did he say that in the original? So it's like there must have been some clarity or mixing where that line just like it was almost like I heard it for the first time, and I'm like, was that always there? Which I guess is the power of remixing. But it was one of those kind of split second things where I was like, huh, and that was the thing that jumped out at me most, believe it or not. As well as some kind of like like I said, like we were talking about, and unless you're hearing it on headphones and really just sitting there to listen to it, I think if you hear it the way like Rich and I did, I was listening to it in my car, which is not the worst speakers in the world, but not the best. You probably miss a lot of subtleties, but it's like I just heard a lot of my first impression was kind of like effects for effects sake, you know. Like whenever I hear remix, I'm always just like, oh, okay, I'm gonna put some flange and reverb on stuff just to make it sound different, which is I think a lot of remixes have done that in the past. And I mean, I'd like to think that this one was done with much more care for it than that. But that's one of the things I don't love about remixes is like you just hear all these effects on things where you're just like, well, was that really necessary? So yeah, I heard some stuff that was affected. I maybe some flange and some things higher than other things. But I didn't think that there was anything too different about this song. Like I said, except for like a couple of lines from Gillan that really just jumped out at me for some reason.
Yeah, I think there was overall on the remix, it sounded like a lot of, well, it sounded like new effects on the vocals, and some of it may have been, and it's hard to tell though how much some of those effects may have been there and maybe just enhanced, because I know when you listen to isolated tracks even from songs 50 years
Mhm.
ago, and the vocals are usually the most noticeable. We're like, wow, I didn't realize there was that delay or that much reverb, and it kind of gets lost in the total mix.
Mm.
But I think there's probably definitely some additional stuff put on there. But again, what's the point of remixing it if you're not going to do something? And I think there's definitely a lot of fans who, I guess I just don't know what they're looking for in a remix, if they are, oh well, this version was better or that version was better, because what is the point of remixing it, listen to it if it doesn't make it into something different? And when you look at it as a whole, this is very slightly different. There's some things that are changed, but as a whole, this isn't like a a hip hop remix where you can't even recognize the
Right.
song. This
Mm.
is, or like they put a completely different backing track on it. These are overall minor tweaks, but if you're really used to a specific version of an album, then obviously you're going to prefer that one that you grew up with.
See, I'm looking for, if they're going to do the remix again, if you got the original anyway available, if you do a remix, I mean, did Blackmore do a different solo, that you could put in there, or
Yeah.
did they try an alternate midsection like with My Woman from Tokyo or something, where you put that in and reimagine the song a little bit, but still kind of true to what Deep
Mm.
Purple was trying.
Yeah,
Yeah.
we've had there are bands that have done that before, right? Where and it's escaping me. I don't know if maybe Deep Purple had done it before, where there was an alternate solo, and they put that in instead of the one that because they actually had it on record.
I think
I
Glover does that on his remix somewhere, doesn't he? A few things like he had
I
some.
want
It's been so long
to
since I've
say
listened
maybe,
to it.
yeah, I want to say maybe he did, because it's been a while, but I've definitely heard remixes where that's a cool thing where and it's not like wildly different. It's just, take three or something like that,
Right.
that they didn't use. So there are like a little variation. So it's something cool where you're like, oh, okay, that's different, but not too different, but it's cool to hear it in there for a change.
Well, to Rich's earlier point, I don't know how useful this is, but this is a visual representation of the different versions. And it just does show you, like Rich was saying, that like look at Never Before on the 2024. It's just a black rectangle. And when you go up to the 1972 version, you can tell. I mean, this isn't zoomed in. I wish there was a way I could actually zoom in and A/B some of this stuff,
Mm.
but there might be a bonus episode in that, because what I did yesterday when I had a moment is I just put all four versions: the 1972 original, 97 remaster, 97 remix, and the 2024 remix, all into this file. And what I found was they don't line up. Like none of the originals don't line up with the modern version. And
Mhm.
something happened in 97 where I don't know if they tweaked something, or in 2024 if they quantized it to make it more like on the beat, because if you start these songs up dead synced from the first note, by the time you get to the first chorus, they're not in sync anymore.
Hmm.
So
Interesting.
obviously there'll be subtle differences and stuff like that, but it's I've tried syncing up to the end of the song. I tried moving things around all I could, and I couldn't really get any of the songs to line up directly. So
On the
you can
remix or
listen
the remaster or both?
both, and that's what was
Huh.
surprising to me. Even the remaster didn't line up with the original.
Right. Well, the remix I wouldn't think would, because I know he left stuff at the beginning and the ends of the songs, and
Yeah, and that was okay. So what I did was like, if I just took, say, the first chorus and lined them up so they were perfect,
I gotcha.
by the time you get to the end of the song, they were out. Like it was like the beats weren't matching anymore. So obviously there'd be subtle differences, but I didn't expect it to be that drastic. But for a little bit, for a verse or two, you can kind of do a quick A B and hear the differences, which is cool. Um, but there's almost like, I don't know if they fixed things that were slightly off time or what, but I'd like to dig into this file a little bit more and kind of see what the differences are. Obvious, some huge compression on the on the on the 97 remix and the 2024 remix. Takes it to the next level. But it seems like in 97, maybe something changed, and they sort of base things off of that. But interesting to look at those comparisons. And I wanted to kind of share some of that with you guys today, but unfortunately, I can't show you it in the same program I'm recording on too. So I gotta figure that one out. But anyway, interesting. I'd love to know, like, on a technical level, exactly what they did in the background on that sort of stuff. Oh, and when this ended, my son said, maybe I'm a Leo. Well, actually, when the album ended, he said this was his favorite song
Wow.
on the album. So, and
Good choice.
I was definitely digging it. Like, really, just this. I mean, I've always liked the song, but just that riff, something about listening to it really cranked up, and just that riff is just so good. That's got to be one of the most underrated Deep Purple riffs, in my opinion. It's just really, really good.
Well, the way Gillan sings it too, it's slinky kind
Yeah.
of, he just over the top of it, almost so smooth. I like it.
The bass sounds like it's kind of coming up from behind you in the song, which is pretty cool. And the piano to me sounded so like Billy Preston Beatlesy to me, which I think it always has been. But there was something about the surround sound mix listening to it where I was like, wow, I feel like I'm listening to something off of Let It Be during that part. It was really, really cool.
The Fender Rhodes will do that to you.
Yeah, it's so good. So good. I used to own a Fender Rhodes, but my friend's father threw it away.
Threw it away.
I left it in his basement and he threw it away.
Man.
Oh,
I know. I still, when I see him to this day, I'm like, you owe me a Fender Rhodes. I got it for like $20 at a yard sale. Imagine that. Like,
Wow.
like,
there was a time because every general business band in the world had one.
yeah.
And then, the Juno 106s came out and everyone's like, I'm not lugging that thing around anymore.
This is a vintage Fender Rhodes. I got it like, I don't know, 95 at a yard sale. You remember it, John, right? It used to be in my room. Like,
Yeah.
And I left it in Bejan's basement and he freaking threw it away.
Unbelievable.
Unbelievable. So I got it for $20 a yard sale. Unbelievable. It'd probably be like $1,200 now to get it. But, anyway. Pictures of Home. What do you guys think of that one?
I think it made me want to punch Zappa in the face. So this is where it all went south for me. I have never been more angry at a remix because I've never been angry at a remix, but I was just like, what? He absolutely ruined this song. I don't know what he did to the drums, but it's awful. The intro just is like the power of that intro and those great fills are just completely lost in this mix. Awful, 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 awful. And then same thing at the end when it comes back in, it just lacked the power that it had, which is weird. Looking at the audio files you just put up, it should have more power and more volume, but I felt like something was taken away from it, that it just didn't have that oomph when it comes back in. But yeah, no, this is the punch Zappa in the face song. Dweezil the Weasel.
I don't know if my take on it is as angry as Rich's, but I have a similar.
That one.
I have a similar.
Right, so you hold them while I hit them.
I have a similar observation. This and maybe a couple of other songs where they actually sounded like there were some parts that were neutered a little bit, and that was definitely the drums and of course like Glover's iconic bass solo, which I don't know. I just feel like with the remix, wouldn't you punch that up a little bit? And almost felt like it was kind of like it cut the balls off of it. And I'm like, all right, I hear it, but it doesn't sound great. It doesn't sound like better. It almost sounded like he made it worse.
Yeah, softened it.
Yeah, exactly. You know what? That's a perfect way of putting it. Like the drums and the bass were like softened, which I don't think does this song any favors. And I mean, ask me what song on this album I don't like, and I can't tell you. I like all of them. So it's like I love this song, and I was not happy to hear that was kind of done to those parts. But I most notably, because of course I'm looking forward to Glover's bass interlude and toward the end, and that I was like, all right, how's it gonna sound? What's he gonna do to it? And I'm like,
He also drowns Gillan's vocals in
Mm.
effects, like unnecessarily.
Yeah,
It's
that's
a guy
another
who
thing I don't
doesn't
love.
need effects on his vocals. It's Ian
Yeah.
Gillan.
Mhm.
And the flange was just too much on things. I don't know. Just Yep. Plenty of reasons to punch him.
I would I would say I was when the drum intro obviously was I couldn't believe it. Like it didn't sound anything like the original, and it sounded almost like it was like Pace was messing up when he was
Right.
like it didn't sound like it was like, wait a second, like this. It's the timbre of the drums was totally different, but the timing even sounded like it's like it sounds like he's not doing he's not able to do it sounds like it was like a take where they're like, nah, I kind of messed up the beginning, let's do it again.
It's almost like he doubled it or something, but was slightly off. You know what I mean?
Yeah,
So
but there's like some sort of like some sort of like pre-delay or something. I don't know what it was, but it made it sound, I don't know. It sounded like if you got one note, like if you took the two drum sets playing in Hot for Teacher and just moved one of them just slightly over, so it sounded like a complete mess. And that's
it's actually a good comparison. Yeah, that's a really good comparison. That, and I heard somebody, one of our good friends who's a machine head file and a drummer, compare it to Pacey playing on wet cardboard boxes.
Yeah, just put enough reverb on that wet cardboard and it'll sound good. But yeah, I was disappointed in the mix. The Atmos mix was really cool. Like the chromatic thing on the organ. That was really cool because it was the way they panning it. The guitar solos were panning like diagonally between two speakers, and it was a really cool experience. But I'd say the beginning of the song really threw me off on the surround mix. And on the stereo mix, this one I would say was probably the worst of the mixes in my opinion on the album. All right,
cool.
So I don't know, should we?
All right, so I'll meet you guys over at Dweezil's house a little later this afternoon.
I guess we should say too,
some brass knuckles.
I'm a big Dweezil fan. I love Dweezil Zappa. I really do. I think but that being said, when they announced this and I was like, wait, Dweezil Zappa's remixing it? I was kind of like, why? I didn't really, I mean, the only obvious connection being the Frank Zappa Smoke on the Water thing, but other than that, I was just like, why is he doing this? Like, not that I question his ability. I'm a fan of his music. I'm a fan of him personally. I just was surprised that he was the one doing it.
So I guess this is, so I looked a little into that because I thought the same thing. I guess this is going to be a series of these remix albums now. So the next up is your favorite. Who do we think we are? And they're bringing in Lord Longford's grandson to remix that.
Lord,
which would make just about as much sense.
I was waiting. It was April 1st recording with Rich. I was waiting for when it was going to happen.
I already got snookered by that stupid new album release thing. I got so excited. I was going to share it before I read through it. And then I read through it. I'm like, oh, you son of a bitch. Until I got to the Ian Gillan playing the dulcimer thing or whatever.
So, but Gillan did say in an interview like last week that their album is coming out in July. Was that just a setup for the April Fools?
I don't know.
Is it really coming? Now I'm confused because.
No, I think it really is. That was the mastermind, Tim Summers, who does so many great things.
He's a genius.
He really is. But there've been a couple good ones. They've had a couple good ones that people pulled today that I was like, all right, yeah, you almost got me. But I mean, seriously, all kidding aside, like I make that joke about, Lord Longford's grandson, but that's how tenuous the connection is. Okay, yeah, your dad was a great musician and you're a musician. I don't know that I've ever heard anything he's done. but rumor has it he can play guitar.
He's
um,
great. Yeah, he's a great
yeah, I
player.
mean, he's just not, not in my realm of music I listen to. But it's not like he's a super well-known producer,
Well,
or
right, exactly.
or like there was some other reason to have him do it. Now that said, from a marketing standpoint,
Right.
first of
Yeah.
all, this is a horrible marketing thing anyway. Because one, it's not 50 years; it's 52 years, and
Yeah.
any idiot can figure that out. Right. I mean, that just pisses me off right from the beginning, my OCD. And then
Yeah,
you get this guy to remix the album who isn't that skilled. It's not like you brought in like, Martin Birch's kid or something. Like, even that would be like, oh, okay, well, let's be interested to see his take on his father's work. But to have this, Zappa do the whole album, now maybe it would have been cool to just have him do Smoke on the Water. Like, oh,
yeah,
have him do
yeah,
Smoke on the Water, and then why not add in, where they're singing about his father, add in a little thing from a Zappa song or something, like
yeah,
make it interesting, make it a true remix, and then have other producers or other famous people or other people connected to the band. Metallica, they love Deep Purple, have them come in and remix one
yeah.
song,
Mm.
and then each song is remixed by a different person or a different take on it, would at least be interesting. Even if it's not successful, at least be interesting. And from a marketing standpoint, probably better. This just seems, and I'm sure you guys saw Roger Glover's statement on it. I mean, he's his typical
You're gonna.
kind self.
I was going to ask you because it was on a site that I don't have access to that it was posted. So what did he say?
He was polite. I don't remember his exact words, but it was you could read between the lines of, he basically says it was 100% the record company's decision and that they had nothing to do with it or say in it,
Mhm.
which I think is his kind way of saying it sucks without saying it sucks. Or there was no reason to do it, which is basically what he's saying. It's a money grab by the record company, by Rhino,
Oh, sure.
that has nothing to do with the band. It's not like the band went to them or like, "Hey, can you do this?" It's just ill-timed, ill-advised. I mean, and the only people they're, I mean, realistically, who are they targeting? That massive Dweezil Zappa fan base
And
that's going to snap
that's
this up?
exactly like you said. Like if it was like Rick Rubin remastered it or
Yeah.
remixed it, people would be like, or some mega producer that everyone knows, the Mutt
Or
Lang
or
remix.
even or even Ezrin. Like Ezrin's gonna do
Ezra,
what
yeah.
he's done for the last bunch of Deep
Hmm.
Purple albums, and so love it or hate it, at least you could be like, oh well, that's kind of interesting. Like he's done such a good job with the last few albums. Let's see what he does with this.
Well, it's like, you should probably get hired by them for marketing because I think your idea of having every song, done, like you said, having Metallica do, When a Blind Man Cries or something, because
Right.
that's a song they're tied to, and having Dweezil do Smoke on the Water, and that would be cool, and to have a bunch of different things. Because I will say, the thing that I always really liked about Machine Head that certain albums have is it has that feeling like this was all recorded together in the same time, same place, for obvious reasons. But it has a continuous sound throughout the album. Now, I also really like albums that try something completely different on every song,
Yep.
but this is one of those albums that sounds like it just from start to finish, it was all the same session, all the same everything for obvious reasons. It pretty much was. Um, so
With the
having
exception, I
one,
think they should have put When a Blind Man Cries instead of Never Before.
yeah, you think,
I think it would have hung better that way.
yeah, and
It's
I
not that
think,
I like it better. I think it has
yeah.
more of the sound of the album than Never Before does, and then release Never Before as a standalone single.
Yeah, that's true, and when A Blind Man Cries, listening to it here as, like, a closer after Space Truckin', it's actually kinda cool,
Hmm.
um, but, yeah, I just feel like having one consistent producer do a consistent thing through the whole thing
Hmm.
fits with that style of the album, but I think your idea is a lot more interesting, and if it was for a marketing standpoint, like you said, Dweezil Zappa is a name a lot of people are familiar with because, well, it's kind of a different name. Um, even if you don't know who he is, and I'm a big fan of him and his music and I think he's a great guitar player. Um, but yeah, they could have been better served to get some sort more of a celebrity producer, or I like your idea of having actual bands that were influenced by them mix the songs would be kind of
Right.
cool.
Yeah, and like you said, though, too, Rick Rubin, like that'd be interesting because he'd strip it down or,
Yep.
but yeah, no. As far as Dweezil goes, I had a falling out with him years ago when he threatened my mother with his guitar, and that was just the end of that. But so back to your point about the whole album sounding alike, I agree. And you guys are a little bit younger than me, so but you played in bands, so I know you can kind of. When I listen to that album, it has that. I can smell that hotel. I know
Yeah.
that band smell, like the
Yep.
stale cigarettes or the beer on the floor, and the you know
Mhm.
what I mean. That just has that to me 1970s feel to it. That like
Mhm.
it's slightly muffled, slightly dark, slightly, but that's what that album is. So when Glover remixed it and added a little bit of a shine to it, I liked it because it was, updated.
Mhm.
But as you said, like the album is part of what makes it special is it's like that little slice of time and it's a band playing where they were playing as a band, in that corridor. And and hearing Pacey do the unboxing and talk a little about like, how his drums were set up and stuff, it sort of brought me there too.
Mhm. Yeah, and they're very much Deep Purple's very much a live band. They don't do a lot of studio trickery. They'll do some effects and things here and there, but
Mm.
there's not a ton of Deep Purple songs where you're like, well, there's no way they could do that live.
Right.
They don't have a lot of added instruments. Throughout their entire catalog, there's just a handful of
Yeah.
things
Not
they're
intricate 4-part harmonies.
yeah, they're sparing
Yeah.
with Gillan will throw in a harmony here and there.
Mhm.
Ritchie will double a solo part here and there, but for the most part, they can produce live what they do in the studio, and it sounds
Oh,
almost exactly the same.
100%. I mean, you hear um, the live the live shows that are later on this disc, and it's just amazing how it almost. I mean, I know that they were coming like right out of the studio, like white hot, like they were just so great back then. But I mean, you listen to those live tracks, and it's almost even with Gillan singing, it's like sometimes they'll uh, and Rich has talked about it before. On some nights you're just like I'm not hitting that note, so you'll go to another note. And I mean, you'll hear that with a lot of singers too. And I mean, like Gillan will hit those high notes just like the album. They'll play the songs just like the album, and it's like, yeah, you like a little variation, but there's also something to getting what you're hoping for, what you expect, and it's almost like, am I listening to the album version or a live version? I mean, that just kind of um, um, it kind of cements what kind of band they were because it's like you hear Machine Head and you're basically hearing the band sound how they actually sounded live, which is a great thing because like you said, no trickery, no pulling the rug out from under you type thing. It's like what you heard is what you got. And I mean, I think that was I mean, of course you have to figure there are some songs where they went off and they did their jams and everything, but like the songs were basically the musicians sounded exactly like they did. And that's why I was always, love this band too, is because you would hear them live, um, just see um, like a video, like a show that they did, or hear an audio like on these two live shows that are on this, and just be like, what amazing musicians these guys are. Because I mean, just listen to them. They're so tight, and they're just everything they're doing is like just perfectly aligned.
Yeah, and I do like that style of album that you just kinda put on front to back, and it's almost like a live show, and
Mm.
that's what this is, and, then you get the opposite end of it, like the later Beatles albums where I don't know how they'd be able to pull half of that stuff off live, without at least 20 additional musicians. But, yeah, it's great, great stuff, and, I don't know that you need to go too crazy with a remix, and I don't think they went too crazy, but I think we can agree that Pictures from Home was a little,
Fail.
it was a fail, epic
Boo,
fail.
boo.
Um,
0 stars.
um, yeah, but I also kind of find myself so used to how they play it now, and I've heard it live so many times that, there's that, call and response almost with the vocals and the instruments that's missing. So like I was almost expecting to hear that on the on the studio version again, but
Well, and
um,
that hit that they've been doing now probably for, I don't know, 30 years, the accent hit, oh, year after year I have grown. Bam.
yeah. Oh yeah, yeah.
And when it's not that, wait, that's not in the original?
Exactly. They'd probably only been playing it for 2 days when they recorded it.
Right.
So, all right. So let's take a break now and thank our next level of patrons. And that is, of course, bringing us to the core level patrons at the $7.77 Keep It Warm Rat tier. We have Michael Vader at the $6.99 new nice price tier. Spike the Rock Cat and Sugar Tea at the episode $6.66 tier. We have Steve Coldwell and Arthur Smith.
Getting support from the patron Arthur Smith.
Anton Glaving and Charles Meadows. At the $6.65 Almost Evil tier, we have Kenny Wymore and Richie Sucksmith. At the $6 What's Going On Here tier, we have Richard Fusey. And the $5.99 The Nice Price tier, Robert Smith and Carl Hellberg. At the 60 kroner Scandinavian Nights tier, we have Newt Morton Johansson. And at the $5 Moneylender tier, we have John Convery, German Heindel, Adrian Hernandez, Jesper Alman, Alexei the Perfect Stranger Slepikov, Kev Roberts, Percival Frequency, Scott Zern, Cynthia Doobie, Raf Calf, Coyote, Bongwater, and our patron upgrade, John Maselli.
I love when things work out.
All right. Thank you, everybody, for your generous support of the Deep Purple podcast.
And the new system makes it so I don't have to swear every time that clip comes through.
It's nice. I can edit the volumes of the individual clips. We're not there yet, but we're doing pretty good.
So quick question, how does
just throw that in whenever I want?
how does Steve Coldwell not have his own jingle? Or
I don't know. I was thinking about that.
he's a big Simpsons guy, so maybe the fact that he doesn't have one, we just do the
yeah, it's like it's totally random, like who has one and who doesn't. It's just like if something like
clicks
some
in your
joke
brain.
grows out of somewhere, then we do it. And it also has to do with like, do I have time this week to throw together a jingle?
True.
And I was like, if everyone has one, we'll have to have an extra hour tacked on every show.
Well, I think you can just make it so you have to donate to a certain tier.
Yeah, I was thinking that like there's got to be like we can grandfather in all the old ones, but you'll have to be at a certain tier that guarantees you a jingle.
That's right.
And right now, that's the $150 tier, guaranteed jingle tier.
No, that's you get to pick your own.
Yeah,
Anything other than that, we pick it.
yeah, exactly. Okay, so then we get to, as you previously mentioned, Never Before. What do you think?
Another one that I think he ruined. I mean, I've always kind of liked the song, but I just think he added way too many effects to it, especially in the slow part,
The bridge section.
the
Yeah,
bridge section.
totally.
It way too many effects, and it gets swampy and it loses kind of the feel. It's flange, I think he put in. I mean, I only
Yeah.
listened to it once, but as soon as I heard it, I'm like, oh God, that's awful. Maybe not as bad as Pictures of Home, but that would be very hard to top. So, but yeah, no, again, like he didn't add enough to it to make it interesting, and the things he did add, I felt took away from it.
Yeah, what do you think, John?
I agree on that one. The part for me that it mostly took away from was that the beginning, that little opening jam, because as I probably said on our original Machine Head episode, one of my favorite things about that particular song is that you can hear that ambient room reverb, especially on Ritchie's guitar. It's almost like you close your eyes and you could just like picture them just jamming, like him just kind of improvising that little bit, that solo. And it's like it again, just like the previous song, it got softened somehow. It didn't have that same that same timbre to it. It didn't have that same sound, and it just kind of took that away from me, because that's one of the things I always look forward to or enjoy about that song, is it's just kind of that almost spontaneous sounding opening jam before it goes right into the song. And I didn't hear too much different on that, except, I mean, I was expecting that the slow part was going to have some kind of modification to it in the middle, which it did. It's almost like you can kind of in some of these songs you can predict where somebody is going to start messing around with it, and like halfway through the song I'm like, I know something is going to be different in this part, because it just lends itself to somebody being like, ooh, let me just tweak a little bit. Yeah. But yeah, for my tastes, like the beginning part of the song is the one that really was I was really disappointed by the most, because it didn't have that original feel to it.
Yeah, I in some ways, I think it was kind of, it didn't feel like there was too much super changed about it, but I did definitely make note of the bridge section, the beginning part. Like you said, it's got that great improvised feel to it. Like it just feels like it wasn't even intended to be part of the song, and they just went into it. It was one of those things I was like, oh, let's just leave it in, you know.
Mm.
But it just sounds like, you know, which is what Ritchie's playing, that really minimalist kind of almost like just muting and picking at the strings, and it's
Yeah.
got a great feeling to it. But um yeah, a lot of effects thrown on in that, and I was having a hard time telling too, is this an enhancement of the original, or because they would have printed all those effects to the track and the time, I think. I don't think they would have run it through anything when the mixing. So it's a hard to tell if they super enhanced that or just added additional, but probably added additional.
Mm.
All right. The song we've all been waiting for, Smoke on the Water. What do we think about that one?
It's hard because I was kind of unfamiliar with it before this. So, no, again, that's one of those ones that I mean, I probably never put on to listen to.
Yeah.
You know, I don't shut it off if it's on, but I don't seek it out, even live versions and stuff. So some of it I was like, has that always been there? And I just didn't notice it. Did he enhance it? But I didn't mind this one. I actually kind of liked it. I thought it had a little bit more power to it, a little bit more clarity to the riff. And probably again, because he upped the volume on everything. That I thought he did a nice job, and there's some stuff at the end. He threw some Gillan screams in there, and um, made it a little more interesting. But then again, since I've heard it a bazillion times, anything you're going to put in makes it more interesting. I actually, like I said, would have liked to see him take it even a step further. And when it, says, Frank Zappa and the Mothers, maybe find a clip of them from that show, or, playing one of the songs they played at that show and somehow put it in there, work it in there, just make it, I don't know, make it something more than what it already was. Make the point of having him remix it count or matter, because I just think the connection is stupid. I don't know. Just the fact that his dad gets mentioned in the song, I don't think is enough to say like, oh, okay, well, you should remix the whole album. But that's just me.
Yeah. Yeah.
You could have done. He could have brought old Cement Wrist in to do some overdubs for Pace, because he's a solid drummer.
Well, you don't
That's
have
if
to
Coverdale. That would be the one that Coverdale remixed. He'd have
yeah, he would.
he'd have Aldridge come in and redo the drums.
Joel
Joel
would
Hoekstra, yep.
replace the guitar solo.
No, he'd be
Right.
respectful and be like, well, nobody can replace Ritchie Blackmore, but I added a harmony line to it. And
No one can replace Ritchie Blackmore, but I'm going to do it anyway.
but I'm going to try.
Yeah, I think it was interesting, because I don't know, when we recently did that Smoke on the Water isolated tracks episode, and we noticed
yeah.
like I think it's dun, on the organ when he goes dun 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 dun, and he like kind of slides off, and we had never really picked up on that. Well, I picked up on the surround sound one anyway, that when he goes there's like even like a little and a little delay of it after the fact, which I thought was kind of
That's
cool,
cool.
actually. The screams at the end, like the kind of like vocal ad-libbing at the end, was kind of neat to hear, and hear how they kind of like worked that into the surround sound mix. the guitar solo was like really hard pan to the two right speakers, and the keyboards I think were more like in the left. So it was like a very, again, cool experience feeling like you're sitting inside of that song. And like Rich said, yeah, it's in one I'd never put on. We've talked about it recently about songs that I don't think I've ever been the one to push the play button on it, but I've heard it 4,000 times. And, obviously I've listened to the whole album and in that context, but I don't know that I've ever seeked out and been like, you know what, I really need to listen to Smoke on Water today. Like, I wonder what
Hmm.
that song's all
You
about.
know, when I seek it out when people are like, "Oh, I hear you're really into Deep Purple." I don't know if I know who they are. That's when I seek it out. I'm like, "Yeah, you sure?" But oh, that's them. Oh, okay.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah. I've seen Rich do that
Oh.
sometimes. You know those guys? Oh, okay. That's
Yeah, the ad
Um,
libs at the end, though, what I liked about that is it almost is like what Gillan would do live or has done
Mhm.
live, where he's
Yeah.
like, it's burning down and stuff like that,
Yeah, yeah.
And so I kind of liked that part. I mean, that was so Highway
That was
Star and
cool,
that for
yeah.
me were the two that I felt like he did something with.
Yeah, they
Yeah.
fit
Worthwhile.
in. I'm wondering if those came from those ad libs came from that session in the studio, or if he grabbed them from somewhere else and dropped them in. That's I
He
mean
doesn't,
they
he doesn't
fit.
seem he doesn't seem clever enough to do that. I'm gonna say
Yeah.
they were there.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, that's one thing that I was wondering about. That was they fit in, but that's where my mind goes is like, ooh, is that part of the vocals that were maybe there, but they didn't mix them in? Like he did those ad libs in the studio originally. But it was cool to hear them. Otherwise, I didn't hear much overall difference in the song, which didn't surprise me because you figure he probably came from that school of thought of like, I'm not gonna mess with it too much because it's Smoke on the Water.
Mhm.
Like I didn't hear too much discernible difference.
If I
Like
recall correctly,
in the
Gillan, I
songs.
think, used a different guitar solo, or at least the end solo. I think he used a different solo or a different take.
Yeah, there was something a little bit different about the end. Like it sounded like it was a little more extended aside from like the Gillan ad libs, but this sounds like there was
Right.
I thought it was cool though, because that was
No,
kind of
agreed.
like the whole song was kind of left alone, and then toward the end it was kind of like an extended studio jam of it, which I thought was pretty neat. I liked it.
Yeah, from what it looks like, it was like the 1997 remix does the kind of full thing without the fade out,
Mm.
and they kind of expanded upon that a little bit. So, all right, then we get to Lazy. What do you guys think of Lazy?
I didn't notice all that much difference, although again, it seemed a little more dead than it should have. With everything being pumped up, I would thought it would have had a little bit more punch. But even like like when the organ comes in and does the like it felt like
Mhm.
there should be more punch to it, and everything just seemed a little like all the edges seemed to be smooth. They put a filter on. They put a smooth filter on the song. And then when the vocals come in, way too much effects on the vocals. It takes
Mm.
away from it, almost makes Gillan's voice sound a little bit different, in my opinion, than it normally would. But he doesn't need it. He has such a great voice. You don't need to do a lot with Ian Gillan's vocals. Maybe double them up in places, but to add that much reverb is almost a crime.
Yeah, and it's such a straight blues song that putting like crazy effects on it kind of takes away from the bluesiness of it.
Mm.
It's like Don't Make Me Happy, how it's in just mono because Roger Glover forgot to click the button by his own admission. But it works on that song because it's kind of a blues song, and that kind of, that mono feel, or that, that darker feel works without having so much, drenched in echo, and I don't know. And they had the ambient room sound like John was saying. So why mess with it?
Mm-hmm.
Right. Yeah, apart from that, I think the in the surround, it was really nice. The organ intro in particular was very cool to listen to. And I want to say that Ritchie's guitar, I was kind of noticing like he's in the end of the first verse, he's doing these like really subtle descending things, which has always kind of been there, but I just it sounded like you could almost hear him like he's just going that dun, 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 and you can almost hear his fingers hitting the strings, like he's finger picking it. Um, and I never noticed it as prominently as that there, and it kind of made me look at the song in a little bit of a different way. It was really nice.
There was definitely some Ritchie stuff in there that he pumped up, because even on the faster shuffle part, like when he's playing the keyboard solo, that back down out, back down out, he was hitting
Yep.
more single notes than I realized he was hitting during that.
Yeah, and I think he does that in general, but it doesn't. Yeah, you don't always pick up on it because
Right.
he's such a smart player, and somebody who's, you would think somebody who has a reputation of being, an ego and all this sort of stuff would not be able to do that, but he does it. He knows how to play for the band, and it's just
Right.
it gets overlooked a lot. In the second verse, like John and Roger are doing this like unison thing that really popped out for me, even in the stereo mix of the remix. That sounded really cool. But yeah, I agree with the vocal thing. Uh, but overall, I thought there was some really interesting things that jumped out to me in both that one and the surround sound mix. All right, space trucking.
I didn't. That one didn't really hit me as being all that different.
Yeah.
Mhm.
I mean, unless I missed something, but I mean, I admittedly at that point I was kind of knee deep in the project that I was working on, and I had lost a little bit of focus. So, if there is something different, I missed it. So clearly, it wasn't anything drastic. If there was,
No, I got the same impression too. As I remember thinking this is probably the one that I feel like had the least done to it, because I'm like I don't really hear anything like immediately noticeably different about it.
I thought maybe when I went to the breakdown, like with the the rhythmic guitar and Gillan doing the yeah, that
Yep.
he would do something there, but I didn't really hear anything.
I think the percussion at the end I noticed in the stereo, and then listening in the surround, it was very like it sounded like somebody had that tambourine and was walking around the room with it. It was kind of cool. Like somebody was like just jamming on stage and walking here and walking there. It wasn't so much just a swirl around the room. But yeah, I noticed that sounded pretty cool.
More tambourine.
More tambourine, please. Um, yeah, and then we get I guess, I mean, that's the end of the album proper, but then they throw on When a Blind Man Cries. Um, any thoughts on that one?
I've always loved that song anyway. I know it's one of John's favorites.
He's coming around to it.
Well, I mean, the live versions that they do now are so far superior. But even that, I've always liked the original. Um, and I think that song really does encompass that room sound that we were talking about. Like you feel like you're just sitting there while they're recording that, because it just has that 100% live sound to me. And he
Mhm.
added some echo and stuff to, that I don't think was necessary. I don't think it necessarily took away from it. He put Richie's guitar back on it. Glover had taken that off at the beginning, I think, during his remix to
Oh,
make it
really?
mirror. Yeah, I think so. I don't think you have that the first part of the solo, not the guitar solo itself, but the do, 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 at the very beginning,
Hmm.
because I
Okay.
think he kept it mostly organ in his mix, and I don't know whether it was to mimic the way they were doing it live at the time, or he just thought it worked better that way.
Yeah,
Um,
I'm not as familiar with the Glover mix. I have it, but I have like my original CD from whatever
right.
1990 that that's really the only one that I've listened to a bunch, and I've just heard the Glover mix a few times. But listening to it again when I did line them up, I mean, it's a really great mix.
I'm probably going to go back to that
Yeah.
today even and listen to it just to cleanse my palate. Um,
Hmm.
But the one thing he did, and I'll be honest, is I haven't listened to the original version of When a Blind Man Cries in so long, is he doubles Gillan's vocals in just a couple of spots. And I don't know if it's in the original or not,
Hmm.
but it just struck me more than I liked it a lot. Like I almost wish they would do more of it in the song. Um, so that was the
You know,
only
they
thing I
don't
noticed.
they don't do a ton of like doubling and stuff with Gillan, but I don't think I ever picked up on any of it until we started doing this show about, he does every so often throw in a line or throw in a harmony, but they don't do it, they don't overdo it, but it's always seems to be done so seamlessly that it can often be lost or just missed.
Well, even the harmony in Smoke on the Water, like I never really paid attention to. I mean, obviously it was there until they did the
Yeah.
the
Yep.
25th anniversary tour. I don't know, whatever the tour was, or
The
maybe it's
40th or
35th.
the
Well, I don't
40th?
know. They did one. No, let's see. It would have been about about 2000. So whatever that would be, 25th. That's 72.
Well, it's
82,
97 would have
92,
been 25th.
97.
Right?
So it must have been 30th. So I guess it was the 30th anniversary tour where they did Machine Head from beginning to end.
Oh, okay.
And I saw it in New York, and Don Airey sang the harmony line on Smoke on the Water. And I didn't realize how much that adds to the song until it's there. And you're like, whoa, that makes it sound right, because they don't do it live that way anymore. I kind of wish they would let him sing more. And now with Simon McBride in the band, the guy can obviously sing. I hope they use him to sing some harmonies here and there.
Yeah, for sure. What do you think, John? Anything on When a Blind Man Cries? This is kind of yours. This has been your song since we did the show.
Well, I mean, I don't listen to the original version, so I was kind of hoping that maybe the remix would kind of turn me on to the song a little bit, but it just didn't. I mean, for whatever they did, whatever he remixed it or whatever, it's just the song just didn't really doesn't do anything for me. And I mean, I'm not as familiar with the original because like I just said, I never listened to it. So, I mean, it's not say I dislike the song. I just like the more recent versions of it. I mean, I think it's good. I just think that whatever and I mean, I want to like this version of it because it has all the elements of classic early Deep Purple in it that I love, but for some reason just doesn't strike a chord with me. So, I can't really speak on this one if like how different or not different it was, or if there was anything that was improved upon.
Yeah. Yeah, my son, when like halfway through the song, was like leaned over, he's like, this song is so sad. He was getting all emotional. Must be those puberty hormones or whatever. But he was like, he was really he liked it, I think, but I think he thought it was too sad.
Mhm.
But yeah, my copy of Machine Head didn't have this on it, and like I said, I didn't get the Glover remix until much later, so it's a song that I'm not as familiar with, but I always liked the song, whether it's the album version or live. I think it's a pretty good song, and it was definitely on this one, the surround sound remix, for whatever reason, had like an insane amount of hiss on it. It sounded like we were playing a cassette version of it, and I don't know why, because it was so noticeable, especially since everything else sounded so crystal clear and clean. What it reminded me of is, if you ever watch like the deleted scenes of a movie, and when they show them and they just look all like grainy and choppy, you know what I mean? Like they play like this deleted scene that they never touched up for the theaters, and it just looks like crap. That's what this sounded like to me. So I don't know why they would do that in a surround sound. I didn't pick up on it when I listened to it in stereo, but the surround sound one sounded absolutely awful.
Huh.
I have no idea why that is. It just seemed
Yeah.
odd that they went through all the trouble of doing that and didn't EQ out the hiss.
Maybe we'll just do one more like insulting slap to Dweezil, like after we beat him up. After I punch him in the face, you can just add, and this is for the hit song when a blind man cries. Slap.
No, I could never be mad at my man Diesel.
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 Diesel Zappa.
That's his kid.
That's his like jacked up steroid brother. Hey, the one nobody talks about.
Well, you know that the artwork for this episode's getting Diesel Zappa with like Diesel.
Like Schwarzenegger body.
all roided up. But yeah, other than that, the only things on, well, I won't say only. The cool thing is they also had the 1974 quad mix on this, which I listened to a little bit, and it was cool hearing it in that format, much closer to the original, obviously not with any of the crazy effects, but it was cool. Again, one of those kind of formats that never really caught on because it's just too complicated.
My brother had a set of the quad headphones when I was a
Oh,
kid.
really?
Yeah.
What does that do? Is it like two speakers in each? Or?
Yeah, they're like angled inside. They're you know what I mean? So the
Yeah.
back ones are angled and the front ones are angled.
Hmm.
I don't remember ever listening on them or that I would even know at that age what the difference was, but I just remember him having them and wondering why they look so different on the inside.
Yeah.
He but I'm pretty sure Glover, that was on the Glover mix too, and the car sounds that you think I imagined on this one, I'm almost positive are on the quad mix.
Really?
Yeah.
I'll have to listen to that in particular. But then
First thing I'm
there's
checking when we get off the air is whether those
yeah,
car
we're
sounds
all
there
gonna
or
be
not.
listening for
Yeah,
car
you may as well
sounds.
just wait for the text, hold it in your hand.
It's gonna either be a you were right or what the hell are you talking about? Then they have got the two live shows, the 1972 show, which was, now I'm not super familiar with In Concert, so I don't know how close this is to In Concert. I don't know if either of you are, but
I was. I had it as a bootleg originally, way back.
oh, okay.
I'm sure there were official releases, but I had it as bootleg. Same thing with When a Blind Man Cries. I had it on like some anthology album or something, so I knew it before it came out. In fact, that was the whole reason I bought that, because it had that grab splatter and a few other things that I had never heard. I bought a lot of Deep Purple stuff for one song, Powerhouse.
Yeah,
there were
they're
a lot
very
of
good at
things.
getting you to buy.
Yeah. But anyway, yeah, and here they do it again, but I'm not buying it. How were you talking about? Oh, the live. Yeah. So I was familiar. I've always loved it. I that was one of my favorite live
Great
because
performance, yeah.
yeah, it's you don't get a lot of it because I think it was a radio broadcast or something, so you don't get as much of the crowd noise interfering with it or whatever. The clarity was pretty good, and then this didn't disappoint. I really enjoyed listening to it again. You know.
Now on the In Concert, did they have that MC like between the songs and everything?
I don't think so. I think only at the beginning, maybe. I
'Cause I
don't
thought that was
remember him
interesting.
talking in between everything. I did too. I thought that was kind of, I'm like, which also made me wonder if it was the same show or just, a day later or a day before. You know what I mean? Like real
Yeah.
close. And but I've always loved at the beginning. It always makes me laugh when Ian Gillan's like, this one's coming out on our new album and should remain our opening song for the next year or so.
Yeah.
Or the next 50 years or so. I mean, give or take.
Yeah. I thought that was interesting too. I thought that was I thought at first it was John Lord, like, because you know how
Oh, yeah.
he would do a lot of talking during the early Deep Purple days, and then I was like, oh, it's just some guy instead of like in between song banter. It's like an MC. That's different.
But it was kind of cool because it sounded like he's definitely a fan of the band and a friend, because the way he was talking, he's like that he had a relationship with them.
I liked how before Smoke on the Water, he says like, oh, this is there was a he doesn't even have the story straight, and he's like, oh yeah, there was like somebody had something happened and it burned down, and
They burned down an island so they could write this song.
And then he says something about like, oh yeah, I was wondering if you guys lost any gear in the fire, or yeah, but it was about the casino burning down. He's like, Ian, do you have anything to add? He's like, nope. He's like, he's already tired of the story. The album hasn't even come out yet.
It's in the song.
It's because this I think was recorded in like April or something before no, not even April, but it was before the album was released. It might have been like March or something. So these are all, and they're kind of announcing Never Before as like, oh, this is going to be the big single. You got to check this out. And obviously we know how that went, but yeah, it was really kind of funny hearing that interplay, and you get to hear some interesting stuff. The beginning of like Gillan totally flubs the beginning of Space Truckin'. He sings like the second verse as the first verse, then he sings the
Oh.
first verse as the second verse because he realized you could hear him doing that calculation. Well, do I do the second verse again or do I do the first verse now?
It was a great concert though. It's pretty
Oh
much what
yeah,
I expected. I
Oh yeah,
mean,
they were on fire. I mean, they were just at the
yeah.
top of their game.
And I mean,
Ge-
all of them sounded great. I mean, even
Mhm.
like, I mean, I love things like this too. I love when bands, well, I mean, the band didn't have anything to do with this, but I love when, whether the band does it or whether a record company releases it and they keep in the flubs like that, or like Ritchie again, fucking up the beginning of Smoke on the Water, which I'm starting to think he did on purpose.
Well, that's what I was thinking too, but I was like, this is before it had even come out as a single or anything. So I'm like,
Yeah.
is he already messing with people? But
I think he is just. I
Yeah.
think he just messes with that riff and tries different formations of it. And
this one sounded truly more like a flub than even like the messing around stuff on Made in Japan.
Yeah.
It sounded like whoops. Or I don't know if it's like he started that early, like one time he messed it up and he's like, well, I'm just gonna do that every time now. Or I don't know. I don't know what the origins
Which
of that
I
are.
think is great though, because it's just like when you hear those little flubs, it's like that snapshot in time of, hey, they were a real band, they were still figuring it out, or they screw things up too, where everything now has to be perfect. Or but but one thing that really struck me about this show, which and I mean, I've heard plenty of the Deep Purple live shows, but I mean, admittedly, a lot of the official releases is when they're doing a lot of that extended soloing, especially Ritchie. I like, it really hit me how he just sounds like he's just kind of like noodling around and like searching for something while he's
Yep.
playing. And if anybody else did it, you'd just be like, all right, he's screwing around, he's an idiot. But when it's Ritchie, you can it's but when it's Ritchie, it's just like you can forgive it, because it's just like, all right, this guy's like a genius and he's looking for that. He's looking for something, you know what I mean? Like you could have like a guitar scholar come out and be like, yeah, what he's doing there is like nothing, but it doesn't matter, because it's just like, I don't know how to describe it, but it's like I could almost feel him just kind of like doodling around and being like, I don't know what the hell I'm doing. I'm just trying to figure something out in the middle of like this whole concert. But it's like, I think that's part of like his brilliance.
Yep.
And I heard it on I hear it most with him. Yeah, I don't hear it really as much with John Lord. I think he does it, but in a different style, because they're two different types of musicians. But I mean, it's hard to pick, because it's like, how many other bands are there, like 5 musicians, where you're just like, I don't know. I don't know who's the biggest virtuoso. I love them all. So it's
and I
like,
think in some cases that's why Roger Glover doesn't get the due that he deserves, because he's surrounded by Richie Blackmore, John Lord, Ian Pace. You know what I mean? And it's like, I mean, he's holding his own with them, but people don't give him that credit of what a great bass player is and songwriter and how many things he does for that band,
oh
because
yeah.
he's surrounded by all virtuosos.
I mean, there were a couple of moments where and I can't remember which song, because again, I only was able to give it one listen, where like Roger stuck out and he was really attacking that bass hard, and he was doing a couple of runs where it's just like, yeah, he was really rocking out.
I
And
don't know. I
it's,
don't know if it was lazy, but that stuck out for me. Like he was
yeah,
really rocking that
it might
walking
have
bass
been.
line and then
Yeah,
adding in the
yeah,
little riffs. And
yeah.
Yeah, his playing was great on Lazy, and I think even on you could pick up some of the stuff he was doing um on Highway Star a little bit better than
Mm,
Mhm.
you would on other live recordings. And then Space Truckin' was, they did an almost Made in Japan. A lot of the notes that they hit, I don't mean notes in the literal sense, but um a lot of the points that they hit in the Made in Japan version, they were already developing here and had pretty
right.
close, I think.
Oh
Um,
yeah. Hmm.
and then I thought it was interesting that, they do the Lucille encore, and then uh, Gillan calls it a little boogaloo. We're gonna do a little boogaloo, and he says
From a
it's a
long time ago.
from long time ago. He says, which 1958, which was 14 years old. So it's
Crazy.
equivalent of us doing a song from 2010 today.
So long ago.
So a couple songs from 2010. Firework by Katy Perry.
You love bringing that one up, don't you?
I don't know why.
That's like your go-to example.
It is. And Bad Romance by Lady Gaga.
Oh, all right.
It's funny because it just seems like it was 5 years ago. It's like, I can only imagine back then, but a little boogaloo. Also,
So-
California Girls with Snoop Dogg and Katy Perry, which my kids have recently discovered. So they've been listening to that lately, and I'm like, that's like, I don't know what the equivalent of is, but I've been like me listening to YMCA at their age or something. I don't know. Not even that song was probably only about, that song came out when I was, a baby or whatever. I don't know.
That song sticks in my mind forever because my daughter was, maybe 5 at the time. She came to me and she's like, "Hey, Dad, do you know that song California Girls?" I'm like, "Yeah, I love that song." And she's like, "Can you sing it for me?" I'm like, "Yeah." I'm like, "Well, the East Coast girls are hip." I sing the entire song and she goes, "Daddy, that was really good. But that's not the song."
Yeah.
Like, why didn't you stop me then? She's like, "Because it was good, but that's not the one I want to hear." Then I had to go find it.
Well, yeah, my kids said they wanted they from the back seat, play California Girls. I was like, you want to hear that song? I missed this one in 2010. So so Jen plays it on the radio. I'm like, oh, this is not what I thought. So I was like, play the. She said, should I play the Beach Boys? Oh no, play the David Lee Roth version. That's the one that I listened to at their age, and they're like, this is terrible. I'm like, screw you, kids.
Oh.
Back to Deep Purple, if we can.
Oh man.
I know I didn't want to ruin everybody's fun, but before I completely forget the 2 things I wanted to say, one is Gillan forgetting the lyrics cracks me up, because I always think of that clip from the Machine Head documentary where he's like, "Yeah, we did Space Trucking. It was great because I got to do all those lines like boring Alice and Ian Bates goes and so on." he's like, "Yeah, we're only doing it tonight."
Yeah.
It's so Gillan. Like lyrics has never been his forte, even when he writes them. And I can completely relate. But the other thing was, the only negative I will say about the live stuff is, unless you are visually watching the concert, the Ritchie Blackmore antics get a little tiresome. The noise, the banging, the guitars, and it makes me think when I very first met, my wife. I was so into Deep Purple, and I got this VHS tape of a concert I had never seen. I was so excited to watch it, and we're watching it, and she could not have cared one bit less. Like, and it's funny because I always bring it up. She's like, I know, because she loves them now, but she's like, this is just noise. She's like, this is noise.
Yeah, so some of that theatrical stuff does lend to itself to being more visual. Like I don't think I've ever listened to California Jam. Like, why would I do that when I could watch it?
Right.
Yeah, exactly. There are some things that are they're visual.
Him
totally visual.
smashing the camera, it just loses a little something in audio.
But I always skipped, even on Made in Japan, I'd always skip Space Trucking.
It's a bit much, yeah. I know that's sacrilege, but
I know. But for the longest time, it made me think I didn't like the song. Like, I just don't like that song. And then, I'll see them live do it, or I'll listen to like the Machine every like, oh no, that's a great song.
Oh, it's great, yeah. And then there's the 71 concert.
That was interesting.
What did you guys think of that one?
Loved it. I'll be honest. Over the years, I've heard so many different concerts, and it's pretty rare that I go back to live stuff, on purpose.
Yeah.
But this is a good show. I mean, I love hearing them do like Into the Fire, and they're just at their peak. And it made me, so I was kind of went off on a tangent because you know how after you finish an album, it'll just skip to something else, and a live version of Mary Long came up. And so I had to go back, and apparently they released some old concerts that I was unaware that they had released.
It was recently, and they're on Spotify. It's like a 73 concert, but Mary Long, it's like only a small part of the song, which is
weird. So I think there's 2 versions of it. The one is more complete than the other.
Okay.
So but I immediately thought of you, and I'm like, oh, he's gonna be psyched that this is finally a good live version.
Yeah, because I think it was Marcelo posted something about it, and he posted a few of the tracks, and it was on the Blue Sky. He posted it, and I was like, "Whoa, really?" And I looked at it, it was like 1:45 or something. It's like, "What? What's
Yeah.
going on?" but it's actually a pretty cool concert. And it was just, I don't know, a couple of weeks ago maybe. But yeah, there's precious few live Mary Longs out there, and they're mostly all bootlegs. I think this is the only this might be the only official one that they've released from that era.
Yeah, from that era, yeah.
But yeah, the audio is obviously a little rougher on this one. It sounds a little bit more like a bootleg, but yeah, great energy. Good hearing some of those songs that they don't necessarily play anymore. But I enjoyed it.
Yeah, I mean, honestly, if I was gonna buy the set, it would be for those two shows.
Mm.
But
Yeah.
where I can hear them on Spotify whenever I feel like it, they have effectively made it so I do not have to buy it.
Yes. That's why they got to put the books and the posters and all the other stuff in there to get people to fork out money for physical media. But well, guys, before we wrap things up, I do want to thank our last round of patrons. That is, of course, our foundation level. At the £3.50 tier, we have the Deep Purple New York tier, Lord Longford. At the £3 aromatic feed tier, Simon Ford and Richard Brees. At the $3.33 halfway to evil tier, we have Stephen Sharp and Duncan Leask. And at the $3 Nobody's Perfect tier, we have Peter Gardeau, Ian DeRosier, Mark Roback, Stuart McCord, Ivan Fjellbu, Runar Simonsen, JJ Stenard, Ruinous Inadequacies, Michael Boyette, Corey Morissette, and Ashley. At the $1.71 I Want My Own tier, we have
Rich, Yangui, Shaylor. Who the hell is that?
at the 10 kroner tier, Karsten Lau. And at the $1 made up name tier, we have, an ICDC, of course, at the new $1.20 tier, I think it is. $1.50. At the $1 made up name tier, we have the Super Leak Lux, Leaky Mausoleum, Stephen Somerville, the Concerto 1999 Fanatic, Hank the Tank, Private Eyes, Ashen Lionel,
Blackmore tights.
Steve Down to Earth Kohler, Zwapper the Electric Alchemist, Anders Engstrom, Derple Purple, and Purple Swede.
Swede?
Thank you so much to all of you for your generous support of the Deep Purple podcast.
Where's that Swede thing from? Is that from Grumpy Old Men?
Yeah.
Yep.
You dumb friggin' Swede.
Hey, which I had seen, partial years and years ago and didn't care for, and then it was on TV.
Yep.
The other day. It's friggin' riot, man.
Oh, it's
that
hilarious.
is a great movie.
Oh,
Do you
yeah.
see the credits with the Burgess Meredith outtakes?
Yes.
Oh my God.
And I also, and didn't they do the other one too, where they did the Presidents or whatever it was, and that's another good one. Where they're both I think they're both ex-presidents.
Oh, that's
and they're
right.
traveling
Walter
together.
Matthau
But he's got the watch that he's so proud of having, and at some point they sell it or lose it or whatever. And then Walter Matthau just every once in a while is like, "Hey, what time is it?" And he's like, "Oh," and I'm like, "Hey, that would be me."
Yeah, I think those two could be in about anything together. They're just great. I don't think I've ever seen that one. I gotta see that. I gotta put that one on the list.
So I would like to update my my Pops clip to the quote that he sent me yesterday, which was "Up yours, Rich." It was a nice Easter sentiment that he sent me.
Really?
Yes.
Well,
Well, we
John, you have to get him to say it so we can.
Oh,
record it.
hey, yesterday he would have said it, I'm guessing.
He did. Well, because Rich texted him and said, "Happy Easter to my favorite shut-in," and he was like, "What? That son of a bitch!" He was like all pissed. He got
Give
all
this guy
flustered.
You're gonna give Pops a coronary, man.
I got him all wound up thinking that I think he never leaves the house and stuff.
He does, but he blames me. He's like, what are you telling
What are you
these people
telling him?
about? What do you tell him about me? I leave the house. What are you talking about?
Yeah, we
And
need.
then he took a shot at you too, because he's like, I said, I hope you had a nice Easter with the family. He's like, yeah, not with John and not with them around.
Oh man, yeah.
Yeah. I'll have to get Pops to say, up
Up
yours,
yours,
Rich.
young way.
Yeah, well, I think Rich and Pops to replace Lemon and Mathau.
Oh man, yeah, we could have. You know what? That would be a good reality show. I'd watch that.
I would watch it. Yeah, it could be called Shut-ins, and you guys are locked in a house together until one of you just cracks.
Oh, it's good. It's a good idea.
Well,
I don't know. I could easily see me sitting in a recliner next to him, watching Bonanza and being pretty content.
you guys would just end up just being totally quiet, watching TV and getting along fine.
It's like,
This is
hey,
gonna be a
this isn't
terrible
half
show.
bad.
We're getting
this is-
along. We have to mix it up.
This is the life. All right.
He'd be like, "Hey, I'm going out to play soccer. Yeah, see you later. I'm gonna catch up on the Bonanzas I missed."
All right. Well, folks, thank you so much for joining us once again, the Deep Purple podcast, for our first ever same day recording. Really appreciate it. We'll get this out hopefully in a little bit. But thanks so much. It was great chatting about this stuff with you guys.
Yeah.
Do we have the airing of grievances?
Airing of grievances.
Yes.
I don't have a segment for that.
I mean, Purple Chickie might have said that she's still waiting on her Diddy bag. I mean, I'm just saying,
Wait, how are you related to Purple Chickie? Why are you speaking on her behalf?
Yeah, I might have married her,
There might be a Diddy bag somewhere here.
And the extra copy of Machine Head will fit in it, right? No.
Yeah.
So no, but actually what I really wanted to say was I know you have the segment where you talk about meetups and everything. And just a
Yes.
reminder that John, myself, and Mr. Coldwell will be attending Steve Morse opening for Steve Morse with the Steve Morse Band and Dixie Craig's
Hell
in
yeah.
Somerville, Mass. If anybody would like to join us, I don't remember the date. It's coming up though, right? April.
Yep. Let me take a quick look because I was just looking into my calendar earlier. Is it? No, I think it's
May.
no, it's May 17th. It's
right.
a
Okay, I'm putting it
Friday.
in the show notes right now.
Yep, May 17th, the Somerville Theater. Dixie Dregs with special guest, the Steve Morse Band, aka Steve Morse featuring Steve Morse.
And although this sounds like an April Fool's joke, it is not. John Matola, myself, Gardo, Coldwell, and the other half of Chicky and Pete. Who am I forgetting? Gardo
Mark?
and Mark Roback.
Mark.
We'll all be sorry, Mark. We'll all be attending Blackmore's night.
Ooh, right. What's the date on
And
that?
possibly even Nate Beaudry, because we have purchased an extra ticket
Yes.
just in case.
Woohoo, I hope so.
I think that's the 30th, June 30th.
June 30th. Yeah, I'll put it in there.
And
see.
myself.
Yep, Blackmore's night.
All right. So we will all be there. That's Northampton, Mass.
Yep, June
And then
30th.
the night before on the 29th, Purple Chickie and myself will be attending Blackmore's night at the Berkeley Performance Center in Boston.
Wow, man, a lot of meetups. And I didn't even mention because the shows we've recorded before are past that, but Vi Satriani, I will be there April 18th, Chicago Theater. So still roasting up some people to join us. But man, what a bunch of shows.
And in November, I am toying with the idea of going to Europe or maybe England and seeing some Deep Purple shows.
All right. So if you want to meet Yang Wei in person, one of our EU listeners,
Oh, maybe I'll go too, and it'll be John and Rich made in Europe.
Actually, it'll be Purple Chicky, John and Rich, because it's our 25th wedding anniversary.
Oh boy.
Oh, great.
Third
So what you're
wheeling it.
saying
I'm
is
gonna
you
be
can sleep
third
on the
wheeling
pullout?
Hey guys, can I come too?
Can I stay in your hotel room? All right. Well, thank you, everybody. Appreciate everybody hanging in there today. Not getting your deep purple fix as early as normal, but this should
Still
be out
getting it.
momentarily. All right,
Still
thanks,
getting
everybody.
it.
I'll check you guys later.
Peace.
Bye.
Thank you for listening to the Deep Purple Podcast. If you like what you hear and would like more episodes in the future, please donate on Patreon to support the show. You can also leave us a review in Apple Podcasts to help new people discover the show. You can follow us on YouTube, Instagram, Twitter, and Facebook for show updates. See deeppurplepodcast.com for more details. Thank you for listening.